Back to winning ways in the Premier League today with a 4-0 thumping of Stoke City. We return with a bumper show to review today's thumping, our European exit, and if the FA Cup possibly has our name written on it this week. This is your e-Spurs podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs!
Hi guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget to subscribe to the show as always via iTunes or Acast and get every new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We're on Twitter and on Instagram at e_Spurs. You can catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/e-Spurs page. We're also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all the links to all e-Spurs platforms you can head to our brand new website, which is www.e-spurs.com. On the e-Spurs podcast tonight we'll be talking about the 4-0 thumping over Stoke. We'll be reviewing the European exit midweek to Gent. We'll be also taking a look at our FA Cup win over Fulham. Yes, it's been a while, so it's a bumper show tonight. And I'm pleased to announce to take us through the next hour of all things Tottenham. We've got Jason.
Hello mate, nice to be back again.
Hello Jace, good to have you back. And I'm glad to have back on the show Ian. Ian, how are you?
I'm very well. It seems like an age since I've done one of these, so excuse me if I'm a bit rusty.
No problem at all, no problem Ian. Great to have you back. So guys, let's start with today's game, a 4-0 thumping over Stoke. We'll come to you Jace. The perfect tonic after the midweek disappointment. What's your thoughts on it?
An incredibly comfortable win. I must admit I looked at the old betting sites beforehand and saw Stoke were 8-1 to win, and I thought that's not a bad price with us being in a, shall we say, an uncomfortable little period. But from kick-off, even before we were 1-0 up, we'd had 2 or 3 really good chances, and we created chances that first half almost at will. When you looked at it, Kane had the shot that missed the post by inches. You had Vertonghen smashing against the crossbar. Carl Walker was getting involved. It was an excellent performance and the perfect comeback from Thursday.
It was indeed, and Jace, the plaudits were all coming for Harry Kane. He's now scored 20 plus goals in all competitions in 3 consecutive seasons for Spurs. He's scored more goals excluding penalties than any other Premier League player since January 2015. 12 goals in his last 10 appearances. He's a man for the moment, isn't he, Harry Kane?
His performance today was excellent. I mean, the first goal was all about the first touch and just an instant hit, but that first touch was exceptional. But for me, the second goal that he scored today, he might have scored a few more spectacular goals when you think back to the goal against Arsenal last year and ones at Liverpool and things. But I bet he hasn't scored a technically better goal than that in those 101. Because with the ball flashing across the front of you, bouncing in front of you, to hit it as cleanly as he did, to hit the target and make sure it wasn't going up. That was an exceptional finish.
It was a truly stupendous finish. Ian, coming to you, great to have you back on the show again, as we say. Would you say greatest compliment you could pay to Spurs, you'd think they were the team that had the fortnight rest as opposed to Stoke?
Yeah, I think we were just discussing this off air before we came on, that sometimes, everybody talks about the break, you have by not playing, midweek games. We played a midweek game on Thursday, and we looked by far the fresher of the 2 teams, as the first half unfolded. Second half, I think it was job done, and the team just sort of like went through the motions, although we did have a few chances in that second half to extend our lead. So, all of this talk about that the Europa League kills us, I don't think it did on this occasion. So we looked fresh as daisies when we came out.
We did, and just picking up on it, Ian, what did you make of Dele Alli's performance? A lot of murmurings during the week that maybe he should have been dropped. Just firstly, what was your thoughts on that in terms of his incident on Thursday night in the Europa League?
Well, I was sat over on the side where he made that challenge. Well, I say a challenge, and I know I'm going to cause a load of aggro here, but it was more like an assault than anything else. It was a dreadful tackle on their player, and quite rightly in my book he deserved to go. Now, he came out today against Stoke, and we all thought, they're going to try and wind him up, Stoke, and I thought that he showed a maturity today and I was glad he got his goal. But you could see that Stoke had set out to target him to try and wind him up. There was that sort of like challenge halfway through the first half from our pantomime villain of a Stoke player, Charlie Adam, who got mercilessly ribbed all game, which was great. But outside of that, Ali just rose to it and got a great goal in, 45 plus 1, and went some way towards sort of like, restaking his claim as a really precocious young talent for us.
He will indeed, and I know we want to come on to Gent in a little bit, so I don't want to kind of go too far into the Ali chat. But Jay's coming to you. He's now scored more goals than any other midfielder in the Premier League this season. Could you understand anyone wanting him to be dropped for this particular fixture?
No, not at all. I got accused Thursday night of defending him. I think I said it was a horrendous challenge. It was a shocking challenge. It was awful. He thoroughly deserved a red card. There was absolutely no defence of the challenge. What I defended in the week was the accusation of him being a liability. And there's two things to say. It came up today that's his 50th goal for club and country, and he's 20 years old. And believe it or not, and I checked really closely, there isn't a single player under the age of 21 in our 135-year history that has scored as many goals for us as Dele Alli. Now, if that's a liability to the club, I hope we go and sign another 10 liabilities in the summer, because if people want to crucify a player for that, and I think, he's modelled his game on Steven Gerrard. We will all say Steven Gerrard was a Premier League legend. Steven Gerrard was being sent off at 34 years old, 30 seconds after coming on as a substitute. Zinedine Zidane's been sent off how many times? 12, 13? We saw today. Paul Scholes, 7 red cards. I think Wayne Rooney, 6 red cards. Gerrard's had 8. We're calling somebody a liability who's picked up 1 red card in 5 years, which is less than Arsene Wenger has. So, like I say, I just hope we sign 10 liabilities in the summer.
Do you think Pochettino, the way he's managing him, to be fair, I think it was top-class management today. I just didn't think what benefit it would give the player or us by dropping him, because he's crucial to Spurs going forward. I think you could evidently see how much we missed him on Thursday. And again today, although Kane will rightly take the plaudits, his goals at certain times are crucial in games, and I think the player is only going to learn if he engages by more game time rather than dropping him.
Well, exactly. I thought it wasn't his best game today, but even in not his best game, he scored a goal and some of his touches were exquisite. But I think it was more important today that he was kicked 3 or 4 times, didn't react. And, people forget that he reacted, 2 or 3 times last season. I think obviously words have been said, so that when Victor Valdez cuffed him round the face, it was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, wasn't it? There was no reaction from him at all.
Yeah.
So he has worked on it. He has learned from some of it. There was no excuse for what he did in the week. I'm probably slightly different from most. I don't think it was completely down to petulance in the week. I think if any of you want to look it back on YouTube, when he obviously got fouled and thought it should have been a foul, which it should have been. But you'll find when the ball comes back to him, when he gets the ball, he's falling backwards. And his first touch, because of that, he's not quite in control of himself. And I think it's that causes the lunge more than just a petulant kick. Because I actually don't think anyone would make a challenge like that petulantly. I think that if you understand what I mean, I think a challenge like that almost would have to be premeditated or just incredibly clumsy rather than petulant. And I think it was a case of that. So, he was right to be criticised, and Pochettino, I think he did criticise him after the game, didn't he? He did say he'd let himself down. But what would he have learnt today from sitting out watching that game that he didn't learn from being on the pitch?
Yeah, well, I think Pochettino's words, some sentiment there, he said, I gave more love than normal. He's only 20 years old. I'll always protect and support him. And you just feel, with the management he's got there with Poch, there is a real kind of, it sounds like a father and son bond there. And, it's ultimately a bond of trust more than anything there. Ian, going to come on to you. We're going to talk more about Dele Alli when we do the review of the Gent game. But one player I do want to pick up on is Moussa Dembele. Completed 66 of the 70 passes he attempted against Stoke, more than any other player in the game. Just how good was he today for Spurs?
In a word, immense. His pirouettes, the way he gets out of trouble, the way he can sort of like shield the ball, when he's got 3-4 players around him. He was different gravy today. It was great to see him back to his pomp and, driving, towards, the opponent's penalty area, rather than going side to side or backwards. And it was great to see. Absolutely imperious display from Musa today.
What I love about Dembele is just when you think he has lost the ball, he just seems to recover it out of nowhere. And just Stoke at times just couldn't get the ball off him. He's a phenomenal player. And Jace, for you, Wanyama, very much still his best combination there alongside him?
I think overall, I think that probably is the combination. I think against teams that want to press us really high up the pitch, then possibly that might be why we do struggle. But, we'll come on to that, sure, later in the season when we play some of those better sides that will put us under pressure.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that leads me on nicely to my next question. Ian, I'm going to come to you on this. There's been a lot of criticism recently at the level that Eric Dyer, the Liverpool game, the Gent game. What do you make of it for Eric Dyer? I mean, I've heavily defended him recently. I feel that throughout the season he's kind of been moved, from right back to central defensive midfielder, back to centre back. I feel a little bit sorry for him because in the summer, Victor Wanyama's come in, and let's not forget Wanyama's made a great impact this season. I don't regret for 1 second buying him. But do you think that may have just had an effect on Dyer's game, and that's why we haven't seen him reach the heights of last season?
I'm in the same camp as you, Rick. I'll give him, bags of support. He's almost like our utility player. He's one of these people that gets played in a number of different positions. And whilst we always say how wonderful players like Danny Rose and Kyle Walker are, they're normally played in their preferred positions. Whereas Eric Dyer just, he either is put into the corner of a back three, or he's centre back, or on occasions when we're resting, Musa and Wanyama, we're putting back in the midfield, and so it is very difficult. I just thought, today he was very economic with his passing, and he was very, very measured with how he played the game.
I agree with you on that. Bringing you in, Jace. Also, a lot of mentions recently is Ben Davies. Ben Davies, another, would you say, backup player coming in for Danny Rose. Fair to say that criticism of him has been quite rife recently, saying that he wouldn't warrant a place in this Spurs side. Can you understand it?
Well, I'm not so sure he's a backup player. He's a scapegoat player, I call him, not a backup player. I find it hard to understand what people fully want from a backup player. He is never going to be Danny Rose. But, when we bought him, he was going to be the best left back at the club because Danny Rose was awful. So he had a really solid game today. I think he made a mess of one corner that he defended when he headed it straight up in the air and I think then sliced a clearance or whatever from as it dropped down. But other than that, I don't think Arnautovic once got beyond him, did he, in the game?
I can't remember. No, I mean, to be fair,
I think Arnautovic broke from a corner or something, but I don't think he once got in and behind Ben Davies. And Ben Davies supported the attack going forward. I think he hit one cracking ball into the box all along the floor. I have a needle-type pass which Ali miscontrolled. I'm not saying Ben Davies is the greatest left back in the world by any means, but I think he did a solid job today, as he has done in most of the games he's come in for. His crime is that he's not as good as Danny Rose, but I don't look at him to replace properly Danny Rose. He's a different player.
Is that an area of concern, though, Jace, going into next season? Would you like to see an upgrade on the left back, or would you still feel, more comfortable with the fact that Davies is capable enough to replace Rose should he be injured? Well,
I think it will certainly have to be done because he won't sit on the bench for another season, and I think that quite possibly will affect Kieran Trippier the other side. It's all right to say let's go and get a better one, but who? Luke Shaw gets mentioned, but he's not even Manchester United's fourth choice left-sided defender now, or left back, for what you want. And is Luke Shaw really going to be that much better than Ben Davies at the moment? Maybe he will. And I think you also have to look at it, that are we going to, in the summer, look for a left wing back, or are we going to look for a backup left back? Because, we could well go out and get better cover for Danny Rose and end up playing as a back four where we think, well, this wing back's all right, but we actually wish he could defend a bit better. So, there's a lot of parameters have to be met before you work out who's going to be the best as a backup. But let's remember, a backup will never be the same as a player in the first team. That's why he's a backup.
Yeah, no, it's certainly an interesting one come the summer whether Poch will look to make a change. I mean, to be fair, I'm of the same opinion as you, Jace. He's a backup for a reason because you've got someone there in front of him doing the job arguably better. That's the situation. But Ian, I want to come to you next. I have to ask a question. A lot are going to be asking this. Vincent Janssen, with 4-0 up with 15 minutes to go, and he can't seem to get a game. Does he have any future left at this football club?
I think it's telling what Poch said a week or so ago about him not setting the world alight on the training pitch. And didn't Poch once famously say that you come to this club to train, and then, you know, if you train hard, then you get the opportunity to perhaps play for the first team. Now, he's obviously not being picked for a reason. Has he got a future in the club? Only time will tell. I'd hope he would. But if we can find an upgrade or a better sort of understudy for Kane, then I think we might go out and do it. But at the moment, it's not looking good. But then we've just got to make sure that, you know, that Janssen actually puts the effort in on the training pitch and, you know, learns from what Jason has said on previous pods, how to sort of like play the game in England where, you're not got your back to goal, but you got your side to goal, so that you've got that opportunity to sort of, you know, get the ball, play it and move, rather than get the ball, control it, and then try and turn it onto your favoured left foot to find somebody else. So I think he's still got lots of things to learn. I think there is a player there. At the moment, I think he's a long way from being Premier League standard, and that's my honest opinion. Maybe we might see him, you know, against Millwall on the next cup game. Who knows?
Jace, coming to you on that one, want to give your thoughts on that with Vincent Janssen?
Well, it certainly doesn't look too promising for him at the moment, and as I've said, there has been a technical problem with him all season, but that's the opinion of a non-professional qualified coach. I would have hoped that a UEFA A licensed coach will have seen those things. But, you know, even Kane's first goal today, you know, he's already facing goal, isn't he? And you feel that Janssen, again, would have had his back to goal even at that point. So you just don't know, do you? Injuries or something, you think maybe, just maybe, he'll get one more chance, and, you know, by luck, maybe it'll be a suspension, maybe it'll be an injury to Kane that he misses a game, maybe it'll be Son's not quite there to come in, and by luck he gets a chance, and he you know, if he suddenly scored once or twice in a game like that, who knows what that would do to him overall. But I would say his chances of being there next year at the moment are not much more than about 10%.
I can't help but looking at it today, Jace. You look at someone like Gabbiadini, who was a January sign, and he just hit the ground running. It makes you do wonder at times in terms of scouting. Is that just a bit of luck, or is it again just one of those things where it's more, again, like I've just said, luck over judgment? Bitterly frustration, but we'll wait and see what happens.
All I say with Gabbiadini, mate, is, and he's made a fantastic impression. You know, we bought Vincent Janssen to be more than just a 1 month player, didn't we? And let's have a look at Gabbiadini in 18 months' time and see what he's done. I mean, good luck to him. If he's scored 20 goals by then, it's been a fantastic buy, hasn't it? But, you know, we've had players that have come in and scored a couple of goals in those, you know, the Sahars and Good Johnson came in at the second half of the season, contributed too. But, you know, we didn't want Vincent Janssen just to be that. We wanted him to be a little bit more than just a quick fix to a problem for 6 months.
No, I think that's fair play. Let's look at the league then for now then. So we've cut Chelsea's lead to 10 points. We're a point clear of City, 3 points clear of Arsenal, and 4 further clear of Liverpool with an extra game played. What does it do for you today's win? Are you looking at it again just to kind of cement that top 4 finish? How are you looking at the league at the moment?
Yeah, I think that we have to now almost accept that, you know, barring an absolute meltdown from the Chelsea boys, that the league is near enough gone. Then, as Jason has said before, everybody's fighting for the last remaining 3 of the top 4 positions, and we're sitting quite prettily now in that little mini race, as it were. And I just think that you know, I would like us now to consolidate and, you know, finish second, because that would show an improvement on what happened last year.
Jason, your opinion? How do you see it, that top 4 race at the moment?
Well, the title was definitely gone, because I actually feel if we won every single game between now and the end of the season, we wouldn't be champions. So I can't see Chelsea slipping up, 5 or 6 times. So I just don't see that happening. So in respect to the top 4, I think we've got a more than 50% chance of getting in there. I know that sounds obvious, because we're competing with 5 clubs for 3 places, but I'm still optimistic. I'm not going to bang the drum and say we are definitely going to finish in the top 4, but I think I see lots of faults in the others that can be exploited by other teams as well. So I'm confident we'll be in the top 4.
Okay, guys, just want to say one final thing. I know it was offside day, but I have to say the Hugo Lloris save to deny Peter Crouch, I thought was a stupendous save. Ian, you was there, wasn't you? You saw the save. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I weren't aware that it was offside, and the fact that I don't think it was flagged for it either makes it even more a great save. I think the ball gets whipped in from Stoke's left, and Crouch gets to it. Gets a good foot on it, and I don't know how Hugo manages to keep it out, but yet again, Hugo's probably one of the most underutilised goalkeepers in the league. Given how well we defend, and for him to be able to put a foot on that and to steer it away, absolutely phenomenal save. It was at the end that I was sat in, and you think, here we go, this is going to be a goal back for Stoke. But fair play to Hugo, fantastic save, absolutely immense.
It was now a crucial time in the game where I think it was only 1-0. So again, it could very much have changed the impetus of the game.
Can we highlight one other thing from today's game? The score from a corner. We rightly criticise our corners, but wasn't it nice to see a corner that we'd obviously worked on, because Kane stood outside the box, and he would never normally be there. So the fact he stood outside the box and we picked the exact right pass to him, hallelujah, we finally scored from a corner, and a bit of praise to whoever came up with that one.
Finally, all those hours on the training ground, Jace, has finally come off. Christian Eriksen, Lamella, all those, finally we've managed to get a goal from a set piece from a corner. Guys, I hope that's done your review for the game today against Stoke. We're going to go for a quick break, and then after that we're going to take a look back at our European exit on Thursday night against Gent, and also the win over Fulham. See you in a couple of minutes. Hi guys, welcome back to the e-Spurs podcast. As you know, we're trying to fit in a bumper show tonight. We're looking back, obviously, as we've done so far, on the win over Stoke. We're now going to take our minds back to Thursday night, which wasn't such a great night for Spurs going out of the Europa League against Gent. We're going to come first to you, Ian. Was you there at Wembley number 1? Was you there?
Yeah, I was there, block 1, 2, 3. I was I think I was at the opposite end to most of the other lads, I think. So I had a nice view looking straight down the tunnel, so I could see people coming out of there. So I had a good view of the pitch, on the halfway line. So yes, I was there, Rick.
It's fair to say, would you say, Ian, that prior to going into the game, the build-up, I think there was a very much confidence within the support that Spurs were going to turn the game around. I know, obviously, we've spoken about the Dele Alli, the sending off. I mean, in your opinion, did that really change the game?
I think it did. I think it made us play better in a perverse way. I think second half, you struggled sometimes to remember we were a man down. So it was only sort of like a very, very sort of scrappy goal that got them back to parity on the evening, and up to that point, I think we've been dominant in the second half. One thing I did spot, which was really, really surprised me, was how Gent set up for our corners. They sent, was it 2 or 3 players up to our half, and it basically kept them, up the pitch, and it kept players of ours that would normally perhaps be on the periphery of the penalty area, right back defending. So yeah, that was quite good to see on behalf of the Gent the Gent coach, because it's very easy just to sort of like bring all outfield players back within your penalty area, but quite a good little tactical ruse there on behalf of the Gent player. And
Jace, coming to you, I mean, Pochettino again went fairly strong in terms of his lineup, but many critics will point at his poor record in terms of the trophies. Were they right to be angry over losing to Gent, and do you feel that they have a point in regards to the bigger picture?
Well, I think they're very right to be critical of our entire performances in Europe this season. We should have been good enough to go through the group. I think you looked at Monaco against Man City and you see the fact that they've been so free scoring. We probably all underestimated Monaco at the start. And so, maybe we shouldn't have topped the group as we thought going into it. And we accept that Monaco are a terrific side. But overall, we should have gone through the group. We didn't. We should certainly have been good enough over 2 legs to beat Gent, a side that were eighth in Belgium and squad rotated. And Pochettino, for once, couldn't be blamed for picking a weakened side and for not taking the competition seriously. And if I think back to some of the pods we did earlier, I think I kept saying that when it comes to squad or team selection, we might see at the point when he realises he can't win the league that he will try and pick stronger sides. And I think, you look at even the selection against Fulham, it was a much stronger side than probably any of us expected. But yes, they are right to be angry about Gent. And over the 2 legs, we just weren't good enough. I think I go back to Ali again. Without a doubt, his mistake on the night was costly to us. But I think if anyone wants to pin the blame purely on his shoulders for our exit, they're wrong. We were poor in Belgium. Eric Dyer over the two legs made 2 sloppy defensive errors. They both conceded goals from those errors. If he doesn't make those, we'd be through. Harry Kane, let's be fair, if today's Harry Kane had played on Thursday, we wouldn't have had a problem, even with Dele Alli sending off. But the only time he was lethal in front of goal was in front of his own goal. And, that's a shame. So, Ali was a big part of the reason we lost, but he certainly wasn't the only part of the reason we lost. And I think it's if people want to use that as an excuse and hang him out to dry for that, they're ignoring some of the other basic things we got wrong in the 2 legs, which included preparing for that first game, because we underestimated them without any doubt at all. And Pochettino has to carry the can for things like estimating the opposition.
Ian, coming to you, I thought on the night the result was extremely harsh on Spurs, who had to play the majority of that game with 10 men against 12, I think, if you include their referee, who seemed to be very, very biased on the night. But what I was going to come on to more is that it's Spurs' 7th time out of a possible 8 that we've failed to win at Wembley. The concerns that next season that is potentially going to be our home for the league, is it very alarming to you? And would you maybe have liked to go with the MK Dons option if it was still of an opening?
Okay, the Wembley question. It is a football pitch. It is the same sort of dimensions as most of the other football pitches that you will find yourself playing a game on. I don't get this Wembley dilemma. Yes, we didn't win on the night. It was a 2-2 draw, but I was impressed with the battling performance when we were down to 10, and the fact that there were times in the second half, I think there was a stretch in the second half where the entire sort of Spurs faithful got behind the team, and we made a fantastic noise. I think it was just after Wanyama had scored. Now, you talk about the referee, Rick. I think the only decision that man got right on the night was Dele Alli sending off. Outside of that, I thought he was absolutely shocking.
When the original kind of poll went up, obviously everyone was in favour of Wembley, and what you're going to have next season, I think what many are going to allude to is that many are going to come to Wembley, not only coming, to try and put a performance on, but it's the national stadium. Everybody is going to be fired up to play there, whether you play against Arsenal or whether you play against Hull, should they still be in the Premier League. It's a very difficult one, isn't it, next season?
It is, but you have to get over it. We've won, 6 times at Anfield in 83 years, but, we're not going to write to the league and say, can we play them at Goodison Park instead of Anfield? You get on with it. I think going to MK in the league would be a massive snub to everyone that lives in London, and you would anger a lot of the fan base by doing that, and you'd have a lot of negativity around home games there. And I think you'd still have the problem that, certainly if we were certainly in the Champions League, I think isn't it too small for the Champions League?
Yeah,
hasn't it got to be over 30,000? So in which case, you'd still have to be back at Wembley for some games next year. I think if you win 1 or 2 games there, I know you've got to win the 2 or 3 games there, but I honestly believe that we will win games there. And once you get over that hurdle, it won't be used as an excuse. I think it's like anything. If you're losing games, you look for an excuse rather than necessarily a reason. The fact is, we haven't been good enough there. And it's as simple as that. It's not anything, I don't think, specifically to do with Wembley as such.
Yeah, just before I do, like I say, I'm not myself promoting the MK Dons idea, just maybe having another alternative, but I'm afraid there is many, is there, to be honest? It would be one between the two, and I think, like you've said there, we've got to have to somehow grind out the Wembley, the performances. It's got to get better.
The other thing with it is if you say it's strange surroundings and all the things that have been thrown at it, it's not just Wembley that will be a problem. It will be the first couple of years in the new stadium at White Hart Lane, because that will be a new stadium to us. That won't feel quite like home when we first go in there. And we've seen our teams struggle when they go into a new stadium. So the more you can prepare for that type of thing, of playing in a foreign environment, the better it should be for you.
I have to ask this question now, just as we're on the topic of the European football. We've seen various social media comments this week, Jay, saying that we were better under Redknapp, who, let's remember, took us into the Champions League, and not just into it, but into the quarter-finals. Were we better then, Jace?
We were better in that one season, for sure. I think the comments about the scenarios were we better under Redknapp apply to all cup competitions, and if you look at it, there's hardly any difference. Both of them took us into the Champions League. Harry Redknapp took us further by getting to a quarter-final, but then Harry Redknapp also got us dumped out of a Europa League group stage, which included a group with Shamrock Rovers and Ruben Kazan or whatever. Both of them have been to a League Cup final and lost it. Both of them have picked a weakened side at home to Arsenal in the Carling Cup and been knocked out on our own pitch. So I think under Harry, we famously lost at Wembley to Arsenal, to Chelsea in a semi-final. We famously lost to Portsmouth in a semi-final. So was our record at Wembley any better then? No, it wasn't. Harry won one trophy in 30 years as a manager. But if you want to take the cup seriously and you want to win trophies, and I understand that, and that's the be all and the end all, then let's go and get Juan de Ramos back. But then you might find one or two people saying, well, hold on a minute, we don't want to win a trophy at that extent. So the fact is we've won three trophies since 1991. So is Pochettino's record in the Cups good enough? No, it's not. Is it any worse than anyone's record bar Wanley Ramos and George Graham? Then no, it isn't. We had Hoddle and Ozzy playing wonderful football, couldn't win cup ties. So let's bear in mind, we're not excusing it. I'm not saying it's a brilliant record, but it's no worse than most of the other managers we've had in that time.
And Ian, what do you make of that?
No, I remember the 2010 Champions League experience, the adventure, and yeah, we played some great football, but if somebody comes in and offers you 80-odd million quid for Bale and 30-odd million quid for Modric, then it's inevitable that those players are going to go on to bigger things, and they're both now been setting the world alight at Real Madrid, and fair play to them. But we had a different kettle of fish now. We're a lot more together, and like Jason says, we need to get to the stage where we start winning things, because I'm one of the people in my family who've never seen us win the league. The only person in my family that's seen us win the league is my 79-year-old father, who was on the high road when we paraded the league the league trophy. So it's got to get to the stage where if we consider ourselves to be a big club, then we've got to start showing the world football that we are, and we're not just talking the talk.
No, I think that's a fair point. And to be fair, you look at the selections again with Pochettino for the European selections. You can't really criticise them. They've been strong. I think the damage, like we've said, was done in that first leg against Gent, where we just simply never turned up. And then, all right, you look at the Ali situation, but again, you would argue that there was still enough on that pitch to maybe get the result. But it is one of those things. Let's move it along to Fulham, guys. I know, again, we're having to cast our minds back now a full week. A convincing win, you would say. Let's come to you first, Jace. I know it's a while back to go now, but it was a good win on the day, wasn't it? And it set up a tie against Millwall. That's going to be an interesting one today, isn't it? The last ever FA Cup tie. What do you make of that one?
Well, it should be a terrific weekend, because that's my 50th birthday that weekend. So I'm definitely looking forward for that to being a good one. And if it all goes pear-shaped, then at least the stadium will be demolished that little bit quicker, won't it?
Well, I'm saying I think the redevelopment of the ground may come forward, Jay, somewhat. What do you think?
Let's fingers crossed nothing happens that day. We want to enjoy a nice day, don't we? And it's a shame to see one or two idiots bigging it up by doing all the spray cans and things. Might be a bit of banter, but let's grow up a little bit about things. The Fulham game was far easier than probably any of us imagined it being. I thought we probably all thought it'd be a tough tie. Fulham played exactly against us as we'd have wanted them to, didn't they? And they looked completely intimidated by us, stood off us, let us play. It was an excellent hat-trick from Kane, who I didn't actually think had his best game on the day. I thought there was a lot of things he did wrong on the day, and yet that shows you how good he is that he still got his hat-trick. I thought for me the player of the match that day by far was Christian Eriksen, that was behind absolutely everything we did on the day. But I'll take the point. It was Fulham. It wasn't Man United away, and there's he should be shining. But on the day, if you judge a player's performance, he did absolutely everything we wanted him from that day, and it was a very comfortable victory.
It was. And Ian, if you can cast your mind back, I know it was only a week ago, but again, we saw Pochettino name quite a fairly strong lineup. It seems like he wants to take the cup as seriously as he can. Is that the view you're getting at the moment?
Definitely, and it's good to see, because I can remember being on previous pods and we've all sort of like been really disappointed with his selection in the cups, and we've seen weakened sides get knocked out of competitions we should be in with a chance of winning, whereas the actual lineup against Fulham and the performance against Fulham was the sort of performance that you'd want to see from a club like ours who've had such a great tradition in cup competitions, and it was from memory there was only about 2 or 3 occasions in the whole sort of like 90 plus minutes where Fulham had sort of like meaningful chances on goal, and outside of that it was one of the most controlled performances over 90 minutes that I'd seen from a Spurs side.
Yeah, it was very much a convincing win. And that brings me on nicely to this question, guys. I know we're pretty much now, we're February, we're, you would say, more than halfway through the season. We've still got the Premier League and the FA Cup to compete for. Jay's going to put this question to you. Regardless of what happens with the FA Cup, if we finish in the top 4, could this season be seen as a success? And likewise, if we was to miss out of the top 4, has the season been a disaster? What do you think, in your opinion, of that one?
I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle of it all. It can't be a success if you've won nothing, ultimately. Is it still been a worthwhile season if we finish in the top 4 with where we're trying to get to? I think it is. I think it's, I want to win trophies as much as anyone else, and I've said, I've never denied I want to see us win trophies. But I think if we're really serious about trying to win the ultimate trophy, then I think you do that by putting together 2 or 3 seasons of continuous top 4 football, which helps you attract and builds up the horrible side of football, the business side of football, the finances, and it's boring to people. I know Leicester is an exception, but we have to accept that was a freak season, and would we actually want Leicester's now? So I think it would still be a worthwhile thing to be in the top 4. If we missed it, would it be a disaster? I'm not so sure it would be. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a disaster. It would be certainly a disappointment. Certainly it would be seen as fallen backwards. And so, if you offered me it now, the FA Cup or top 4, I'm going to go against probably most people and say I think if the ultimate is winning the league, it's important that we finish within that top 4. But I understand we need to win big games and we need to win trophies and we need to make that small step as well.
It's interesting, Jace. You make a good point there. But, Ian, what do you make of that question? If someone said to you top 4 FA Cup, I'm going to say I would rather an FA Cup. What would your view be on it?
I think that would it be a disaster if we finished outside the top 4? Based on where we were last year and based on where we currently are, then I'm going to say I think it would be a disaster. I think that we need to consolidate this second position, or at least finish no lower than 3rd, because I don't want us to run that lottery of having that knockout game as you have to have in the Champions League. Would that come at the detriment of the FA Cup? Again, I'm of the opinion that we need to win a trophy to show what it's like for these young players of ours, what it feels like to win a trophy. Because if you win a trophy, it breeds that winning mentality, and that for me is the one thing that I think we're missing. So I would, I want my cake, but I want to eat it as well. So I would say FA Cup and 3rd as a minimum for me.
That's perfect, Ian. You want both. You want both.
Yeah, I think that, why not? Because ultimately, if you're always happy to settle for things and you're always happy to sort of like go with the flow and all that sort of stuff, then you might as well, just think of that lot down the road at Woolwich who went for season upon season of not getting anywhere in the cups but consolidating 4th. Now, they've now started to pick up the odd FA Cup here and there, and I just think to myself, then would we have settled for some silverware at Wembley? I think I would.
Where the thing is, Ian, and you're right to some extent to want that trophy, but it's interesting that you talk about the top four, and if we missed out, it would be seen as a disaster. Well, winning an FA Cup won't change the fact that we finished outside the top four. So it would soften the blow, but it would still be seen by many as missed opportunity.
I totally agree.
I think the part I would say is, if I was talking from season 1991 to 2015, and from 2018 onwards, I would absolutely say, do you know what, I'd sooner have the FA Cup. But I think we're at a stage now in our development of trying to keep our better players, of trying to push for a title to attract better players to the club. And with that stadium funding looking not so great, I think probably for those 3 years and for the continuation of what we're trying to build towards, I think probably for these 3 years alone, it's more important to have 3 years of back-to-back football than 2 FA Cups in that time. Because, you know, ultimately, we don't have the financial abilities of the clubs we're in competition with, and so we need to try and improve the other ways to improve our financial position. Don't get me wrong, I never want the Czech to win more than a trophy, but I think you're talking about a specific period in our history where the chequebook is actually suddenly more important.
That's a good point there, Jace, because I don't think we can get away from the fact that Levy, you would like to think that what he's done is, it seems that Tottenham's plan in terms of the expansion of the stadium is built around Spurs finishing, I hate to say it, in that top four, as opposed to, like I say, the looking to win a trophy.
Yeah, I think so. I think players, you look at a Kane, you look at an Ali, and you think they want to be seen to be a club that's moving forwards, and I'm not so sure they would deem winning an FA Cup but being outside the top four as a club that's moved forwards. And I think, you know, the other danger is, without that top four football, and if the ultimate aim is to win the league, you must keep your best players. We've never been able to do. And if we don't finish within that top four, we know that they will want to go and play elsewhere. Now, some people will say, fine, let them. But you're not going to win the league by losing Ali and Kane. And Daniel Levy, if he's got a shortfall in that stadium, may well be forced, unfortunately, to sell a Levy, to sell an Ali or a Kane if there is a shortfall in that money. And having one FA Cup on the sideboard is not going to help us, I don't think, over the course of 3 years, have a genuine chance to win the league.
But isn't there the whole situation of chicken and egg? Now, I'm of the opinion that, you know, we do need to consolidate a top four position, and I'm not naive enough to turn around and say that the chequebook isn't king at the moment. You know, I get that. I just look at all of the game is all about glory and to dare is to do, and we're now talking about, you know, the chequebooks and, you know, rather than glory.
I mean, I'm with Ian on this one, Jace. As much as I do feel the Champions League, in terms of Spurs' progress, in terms of finishing this top four, I think that we are so in need of that trophy. I mean, as fans, as a club, just to kind of see us on that same level with the clubs to which we're competing against, because I think all of these other clubs, they are recognised with players in their squad as winners, whereas unfortunately we haven't got any winners yet in our squad, and you're only going to get that through winning trophies. So it is a really, really difficult argument. I think there would be a split, I think, down the middle, if I'm being brutally honest with you guys. I don't know what you think. I think there would be that split. I would love to see us go on and win the FA Cup. I would not see it as completely disastrous. If we won the FA Cup and didn't finish in that top four, then you would find that other 50% that would say, you know what, like Jace, the Champions League being in it is so integral to keep your best players that they would sacrifice not winning an FA Cup. I mean, just out of interest, guys, we've got the best chance of anyone, haven't we, this FA Cup? We should be looking to win it, right, in terms of what we've got left in there. It's a great chance to win it, isn't it, Jace?
I think I would say we're one of the outsiders to win it, but yeah, it's definitely a great chance to win it. And there's no reason why we can't win it. And I want us to win it, don't get me wrong, I want us to win it. But the only close thing we can resemble it to is when we last won a trophy, and we had some decent players at that time, didn't we? We had Keane, we had a top class Berbatov. We had some decent players. Did winning that trophy keep them at Tottenham?
No, it didn't. But I think
did we build on winning that trophy? Suddenly we had a dressing room full of players that had won a trophy, didn't we? Within 6 months of winning that trophy, we were deep in relegation trouble. So it didn't filter through in the way that we wanted it to filter through. And we lost Keane and Berbatov both went and ended up playing Champions League football, not thinking, well, I've won a trophy here. And I think that all I'm saying is, I think to win the ultimate trophy, I think you perhaps have to look at it and say, how many FA Cups would you win to settle for winning one league championship? If you could win the next 4 FA Cups or one title in the next 4 years, then what would your choice be? And I think to have a chance to win that one league title in the 4 years, then I think, to me, I think we have to stay in the top 4. But, some people want that. The game is about glory. And you know what? I totally understand them. Because I want to win trophies. But, maybe luckily I have seen us win an FA Cup and a League Cup and a UEFA Cup. I haven't seen us win the league championship, and that's the one I really want.
It's such a difficult debate, and it's a great debate to have, because there's no really right or wrong answer. It's, again, just the opinion of the person. I'm sure there are many listening to this podcast that some are completely split over what is the right thing to do. So I think we'll leave that one there. Guys, let's move on to the Everton preview. Everton in fairly good form under Ronald Koeman next Sunday. Let's come to you first, Ian. What kind of game are you expecting against Everton?
I think Everton will come and they'll try and play their game. I don't think they'll come and they'll put loads of people behind the ball. They seem to be a team that likes to come and express themselves. They've got some, decent players, with Lukaku, with Barkley, who we've spoken about on the pod before, and a good crop of youngsters coming through. So I envisage it being an open game, but we're going to have to be on the top of our game, and I think that we should just be able to sneak it, although that 1-0, that 1-1 draw at the start of the season, that was a tough game for us, if memory serves me right.
It was, and to be fair, it's looking like a good point now. Jay's coming to you. We'll look at the fixtures next weekend. Liverpool have got Arsenal. Obviously, we've managed to gain some points on Arsenal today, albeit with an extra game in hand. If we can beat Everton, that gives us a nice little gap there, doesn't it? If Liverpool do their job, of course.
Yeah, it'll be a tough game next week for sure, because I think I've seen that Everton have picked up more Premier League points in 2017 than any other club. So they're coming in good form. They're coming full of confidence. I think it's a game where we'll need our best 11 on the pitch, and so I don't know what the problem with Toby or Jan was going off today, but fingers crossed they're back on the pitch. But it'll be a really tough game, because they're a good side, Everton. But hopefully we'll get across that line. But I think if we play to their best of ability, we will get across that line.
Yeah, and to be fair, our home form at the moment is formidable. It's 8 games on the spin at home winning. 9 would be a club record set if we could do that against Everton. I just think at the moment, Ronald Koeman there, it gives certain it's a certain reflection as to how Pochettino's first season was, that he's just trying to find out what he's got, and then you feel next season, providing he's given the money at Everton, they could really again be a team challenging for that top 4 maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Let's get some predictions then for it. Let's go first to you, Ian. What do you think for next week?
2-1 Spurs.
2-1, okay. And Jace, to you?
Yeah, I'll go 2-1 Spurs.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be in agreement with you, lads. I'm going to also go for a 2-1. I can see it being a very, very tight game. And I think we have to keep an eye on Lukaku. He seems at the moment predator form, doesn't he, for Everton? I mean, that arguably, Jace, you would probably may say that's the kind of backup or alternative we'd love to Kane, wouldn't it? Someone like him. Well,
I think it's the type we'd love, but be realistic. Is it the type you get? You got to pay them both £100,000 a week, and they both want to be playing week in, week out football. So I think Kev Green made a really good point that the only way we can improve our backup players is to buy better players than we've got in the first team. So our first team player becomes the backup option. But then, as I say, you've always got the problem then, would Kane sit on the bench? Would Danny Rose sit on the bench? Would Toby Alderweireld sit on the bench? So, but that's the way you genuinely improve the quality of your squad, is to buy better players than you've got. Lukaku would be genuine competition to Kane, and maybe we do have to do that in 1 or 2 positions instead of saying, instead of buying a backup that Vincent Janssen was, let's go and buy someone that is as good as anything we've got in our first team.
No, that's fair enough. And Ian, what do you make of that?
Totally, 100%. I think that what that also does is it encourages the current first 11 to get better as well. So, I would go along with that. Always try and buy somebody better than what you've already got. That would be my mantra, because ultimately, you're then in a position to strengthen your squad much as I've got a lot of respect for Vincent Janssen, I don't think he's strengthened the squad in the way that we'd hoped he would.
It'll be interesting to see that, I say, if he does get many games between now and the end of the season. I mean, is he the kind of guy that he could come off the bench and win a FA Cup final? That might be going a step too far, but I guess we'll wait and see. Guys, it's always been an absolute pleasure this week. Ian, thanks so much for coming back.
Oh, you're welcome. It was good to be back.
And Jace, thanks as always.
Yeah, no problem, mate. It feels like we've taken a few bashings over the last few weeks. It feels like we've been the club in crisis, but we come out of it in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup and second in the league. And I'll tell you what, if that's a crisis, I don't mind being in one. Yeah, no, when you put it like that, like I say, there's clubs far worse off in our position. Thank you very much. And as always, guys, we'll be back next week to review, hopefully, a win over Everton. And as always, come on, you Spurs!